As the sun rose over the peaceful suburbs of Fairfield, New Jersey, a shocking tragedy began to unfold. An elderly mother, who had once been the emotional cornerstone of the entire family, was discovered lying motionless on the cold floor. At first glance, her death seemed to be a suicide, but the truth is always harsher than we expect. When the police arrived at the scene, they had no idea that they were about to uncover a dark secret, a story of greed, betrayal, and an unforgivable crime. And the perpetrator none other than the victim's closest relative. What truly happened on that fateful morning? Was this a meticulously planned murder, or just a moment of impulsive regret? The answer will send a chill down your spine. On July 23, 2009, in Fairfield, New Jersey, a tragedy struck in a quiet suburban home. Tina Loney and her husband, Christopher, seemed to be enjoying a stable and fulfilling life. They were capable of taking care of Tina's elderly mother, but everything suddenly collapsed. One fateful morning, Christopher was horrified to find his mother-in-law lying motionless on the floor, cold to the touch. At first glance, it appeared to be a suicide, but authorities were unsure. The investigation later uncovered a shocking truth. Tina Loney, the seemingly perfect woman, was living a double life. And the most horrifying part, the victim was her own mother. On July 23, 2009, in Fairfield, New Jersey, a small, peaceful town, at 9:00 a.m., the 911 operator received a frantic call. "My wife just found her mother on the floor. She's in critical condition. We need an ambulance right away." Within 10 minutes, the police and emergency medical team arrived at the scene. Upon arrival, they saw Christopher Loney and his wife Tina anxiously waiting at the entrance to her mother's apartment, a small space located in the basement of the house. Tina, with red eyes and sobbing, told the police that she had found 81-year-old Marie Zotti lying motionless on the floor. Immediately, an officer requested Tina to lead them to where Marie was. As they approached the body, one officer bent down, placing 2 fingers on her wrist to check for a pulse. And then he slowly raised his head, confirming a chilling truth. Marie Zotti was dead. Marie Zotti was cold to the touch. There was blood around her head, which could suggest that the 81-year-old woman had suffered an accident, possibly a heart attack, causing her to fall face first onto the floor, resulting in a bleeding wound. But when the police gently turned her body over, they made a shocking discovery. This was not a natural death. Tightly wrapped around her neck was a necktie. A suicide? Impossible, at least according to Tina. She shakily handed the police a piece of paper that she claimed to have found near the body. It contained only one line: "Tell the kids I love them." In the following days, investigators would face more questions than answers. And when the truth was finally revealed, it would lead them to a terrifying conclusion about Marie Zotti's death, one no one could have anticipated. Tina Zampi was born in 1967 and grew up in New Jersey in a family with a legal background. Her father was a police officer. Her mother, Marie Zotti, was a devout woman who devoted her life to her family, husband, children, and the church. In 1992, Tina married Christopher Loney, and not long after, the young couple moved to Fairfield, settling in a peaceful, affluent neighborhood. By 1995, their life had become stable enough that they decided to invite Tina's widowed mother, Marie, to live with them. The small apartment downstairs was the perfect place for her to be closer to her grandchildren. A year later, Tina and Chris welcomed their first child, a son, and 2 years after that, they had a daughter. The children were very close to their grandmother, calling her Nana, and Marie always showered them with love. Not only that, but she played an important role in Tina's life, a relationship that seemed incredibly close and perfect. After years of nurturing, their family decided to take a long-awaited vacation along with friends from the neighborhood to Outer Banks. On July 22, 2009, Tina happily made the final payment for the trip, but they would never set foot in Outer Banks that summer. Less than 24 hours later, Christopher called the police to report a shocking piece of news. My wife just found her mother, dead. At first, it seemed like a suicide. But as investigators got involved, they began uncovering a dark secret, one that could completely shatter the image of this seemingly perfect family. On the morning of July 23, 2009, Tina Loney, 41 years old, called her husband Christopher in a state of panic. Her voice was trembling as she announced, "My mom. She's committed suicide." Hearing this, Christopher rushed out of work and drove home to Fairfield, New Jersey. When he arrived, he found his mother-in-law, Marie Zotti, 81 years old, lying motionless on the floor of the basement apartment. The sight left him stunned. "This can't be." He immediately called 911 and urgently requested an ambulance. But when the police arrived at the scene, things started to get strange. Tina insisted that it was a suicide, and even handed over a suicide note which she said she found near her mother's body. But what puzzled the police was the manner in which Marie died. A men's tie was tightly wrapped around her neck. There were no signs of hanging or external force. This does not fit the profile of a typical suicide. If Marie had truly taken her own life, why were there no signs of hanging? The police began to suspect that this was a murder. But who would want to kill an 81-year-old woman? A robbery? Impossible. As they searched the scene, they noticed no signs of forced entry. The front door wasn't broken, the lock was intact, and nothing was missing. So, if this wasn't a robbery, what was the real motive behind the killing? In hopes of finding a clue, the police focused on the only lead they had, Tina and Christopher Loney. Immediately, the couple was called into the Fairfield Police Department for questioning. In the interrogation video, Tina tried to stay calm as she recounted what happened. "I walked around the house, looked through the window, and I saw my mom lying face down on the floor. At that point, I thought she might have fallen off the chair or something. I panicked. I ran around the house, found an unlocked window, and climbed in." When she entered her mother's apartment, Tina found that her mother had a broken hip. But what was even more shocking was the tie wrapped around her neck. At that moment, instead of calling 911 immediately, Tina called her husband first, which made the police suspicious. Why would she do that? Tina explained in a confusing manner. "I think when a loved one passes, you should notify the family first." But when asked about her mother's supposed suicide, Tina couldn't provide a clear answer. She only recalled a strange conversation they had a few weeks before. "My mom told the kids, 'You don't need me. You won't remember me.'" The words seemed to have a negative implication, but it wasn't enough to conclude that Marie had wanted to take her own life. Then the police asked an important question. The tie wrapped around her mother's neck. "Whose was it?" Tina hesitated for a moment before answering. "It's my husband's." A shock. Why would an 81-year-old woman commit suicide with her son-in-law's tie? This raised further suspicions that there was something suspicious about the death of Marie Zotti. The case slowly unfolds. The mystery of the tie. Could Christopher be involved in his mother-in-law's death? When the police interrogated Christopher, his testimony completely matched what Tina had said. He confirmed, "I don't know what happened before my wife called. When I got there, my mother-in-law was dead, and Tina had covered her up. All I know is what my wife told me." But the investigators weren't easily convinced. When the autopsy results were released, everything became clearer. Marie Zotti did not commit suicide. She was murdered. The examination showed that the cause of death was strangulation. She couldn't have suffocated herself with the tie, and there were no signs of hanging. Someone had strangled her to death. Her broken ribs indicated a struggle or violence, and the time of death was one day before Tina reported it to the police. What does that mean? Marie Zotti had been dead since Wednesday morning, yet Tina and Christopher went about their day, apparently unaware that a dead body was downstairs. That seemed implausible. New clues. The Loney family's secret. The police began to investigate the Loney family's life in more detail. They uncovered a shocking truth. The electricity had been cut off for months due to unpaid bills. Marie was being sued for credit card debt. The house was facing foreclosure, and the family was in a severe financial crisis. Could Marie's death be related to financial issues? Tina Loney disappears. A shocking twist on Friday afternoon, just as the police were preparing to summon Tina for a second round of questioning. Christopher walked into the police station with a shocking announcement. "My wife is missing." What was going on? Tina had disappeared just as the police were about to question her again. Soon, investigators would pressure Tina to face the truth, and she would reveal a shocking secret. July 24, 2009, more than 24 hours since Tina and Christopher reported Marie Zotti's death to the police. Initially, everything seemed like a suicide. Tina testified. She found her mother dead in the basement, and then called her husband, Christopher. He was working, and after receiving the news, he rushed home and called the police. But the investigators had an important task. Was this a murder or truly a suicide? The autopsy results provided the answer. Marie did not commit suicide. She was murdered. And the suicide note no longer made sense. Before the police could interrogate Tina again, something unexpected happened. Christopher walked into the police station and reported, "My wife is missing." Tina had disappeared just when the investigation was about to make a breakthrough. What was she running from? Soon, the investigators would follow the trail to uncover the horrifying truth behind this case. Morning of July 24, 2009, Tina Loney suddenly disappears. Christopher's testimony. The whole family had spent the night at his sister's house, and no one slept well after the tragedy. Tina looked distressed, anxious, and almost in shock. At 6 a.m., both of them woke up. At 6:15 a.m., Tina said she wanted to go shopping. Christopher offered to go with her, but she firmly refused. After that, Tina disappeared without a trace. Christopher, worried, called a friend and spent hours driving around town looking for her. There was no sign of Tina, and fearing she might do something reckless, Christopher decided to call the police. But the investigators had another theory. If Tina was the murderer, was Christopher hiding the truth for her? If Christopher were the killer, had he done something to Tina as well? Interrogation room. Christopher investigated. He was questioned about the family's life, particularly the financial problems. The police discovered that Christopher had no idea about the massive debt Tina had pushed the family into. He was shocked to learn that they were going bankrupt. Shocking statement from the police. Tina Loney is now the primary suspect in the murder of her mother. But why would she kill her own mother? Does the family's financial crisis have anything to do with this case? The most important thing right now is to find Tina before it's too late. The search for Tina was unsuccessful, but an important clue emerged. Where did Tina go after she disappeared? She walked to a store, then took a bus to Atlantic City. But instead of mourning her mother's death, Tina took a shocking action. Less than 24 hours after her mother's murder, Tina appeared at the Trump Marina Casino. Security cameras recorded her playing slot machines on the boardwalk. The police followed the trail, but when they arrived, Tina had disappeared. The trail grew cold. However, Fairfield police received an emergency 911 call. Could this be the breakthrough to uncover the truth? Why did Tina go to the casino? Where did the family's money go? The truth was about to be revealed. On July 27, 2009, an emergency call from a citizen walking his dog helped police find Tina Loney. She was walking on Long Acres Road, and in her purse, investigators found suicide notes addressed to her husband, Christopher. The truth began to unfold. Just an hour after her arrest, Tina sat in front of the camera, ready to reveal the entire truth. "Do you want me to tell you what happened to my mother?" An open-ended, ominous question from Tina. Tina confessed to killing her mother. She recalled the heartbreaking details of how she killed Marie. The first used the tie to strangle my mother to death. A shocking twist. Tina's confession not only involved the death of her mother, but also revealed a huge secret. She had been having an affair. Christopher had no idea about his wife's extramarital affair and was completely unaware of the murder. The deception was exposed. Tina admitted everything, and when the confession ended, she was arrested for murder. As Tina was taken to Essex County Jail, Christopher was still grappling with the horrifying truth about his wife and mother. The price of betrayal and crime. Could Christopher overcome this shock? On May 7, 2013, Tina Loney, 45, was led into the courtroom in New Jersey to face the unimaginable crime, the brutal murder of her elderly mother, Marie Zappi, 81. Although she had confessed to the crime from the start, Tina later retracted her confession and stated that she had been in a state of confusion when making the statement. Investigators uncovered key details about Tina's motive. According to the prosecution, Tina killed her mother for money. Part of the reason for this was to continue her gambling behavior, which Marie could not accept. The financial motive behind the crime. After investigation, it was revealed that Tina was deeply in debt and needed money to pay off the debts and continue gambling at casinos. Trial verdict. The jury reached a verdict at the end of the trial, and Tina Loney was found guilty of murder. She was sentenced to 40 years in prison for killing her mother to seize her money. A shocking crime that stunned the community, as no one could believe that a daughter would be willing to kill her own mother just for money to feed her gambling habit. This case left an indelible wound in the hearts of Marie Zappi's family and friends. Tina Loney now faces a harsh sentence for her heinous crime.